All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. A lot of people get scared of hypnosis because they think somebody else is going to be controlling them. They're going to be doing things that against their will. Being able to get into that state of trance is what allows your subconscious mind to be open to new possibilities, to rewire these neurological connections that are no longer serving us.
Oh, Dr. Brandy, it's funny. I would have said up until about 6 months ago that I don't ever feel pain, right? I've been kind of out of pain for like the last 5 years. I had a lot of like long-term injury stuff that kind of plagued me in my perimenopausal days. Did a bunch of PT and like got a lot better, right? And then lo and behold, in the last 6 months, I finally got an MRI and I've completely torn my labrum. I've like half of my butt cheeks are torn, like torn ligaments, all this other stuff. And I've never, I've had times when I was in pain, but I was like, oh my God, am I going to need a hip replacement? Having been like a cyclist and all this other stuff. And then I was like, this is so consuming.
Yeah.
Right? Being in pain, chronic pain is so consuming and it affects everything. And I know that you've been working with women all over in all different walks of life, particularly moms and especially, highly motivated, achievement driven moms that deal with this and especially deal with chronic pain, chronic burnout. And I can't wait till we get into this conversation, and especially the emotional components and the other pieces that people don't think about.
Yeah, 100%. Can't wait.
Can't wait. So before we go any further though, but wait, there's more. But the reality is you have a really interesting background, a lot like mine, right? Like this, you weren't always in, the clinical nutrition field and all of these other things. You were once a blackjack dealer, and now you've got a doctorate and in clinical nutrition and mind body tools and NLP. How did you get here?
It's been a journey for sure. So after I graduated high school, I started dealing blackjack because in Washington at the time, maybe still, I don't know, you didn't have to be 21. And it was the most perfect like college job because it makes super good money and I was going to school and it was perfection. And so it really served a purpose at the time. Now, it's not the greatest environment to promote health. There's a lot of addiction and late nights and all the things involved in that, but it served a purpose short term for sure. So I was going to school. I was going to school for business and I was going to like get my MBA and I was going to like be a C-suite executive and like that was my path. And then the universe was like, you're cute. That's not what we're doing. So I started getting I was interested in nutrition in high school because I had made the connection that when I ate gluten, I had severe chest pain and like it gave me a pleurisy in my lungs and I couldn't get a full breath and I was in the ER for it and I just got my blood drawn and an x-ray and here's some Vicodin as a 16-year-old, which doesn't seem like the play. And they would send me on my way. So I figured that out, which was like way before gluten-free was a thing. So my interest was piqued. And then after I did my undergrad, then I started having some health issues. And like a lot of people in this field, that's kind of what redirects their path. And so I had very severe mold illness. I struggled with miscarriage and infertility. When I was dealing with all of that, when I was at my lowest, I was having a lot of suicidal ideation. My symptoms were I was extremely dizzy, vertigo all the time. I felt very omnipresent and out of my body. I had something called erythema nodosum on my shins, which are like big, red, hot, heavy, painful, itchy nodules on my shins. I was bruising very easily. Nobody could figure out what was wrong. Maybe you have Meniere's, maybe you have MS, but your labs look fine. Maybe you should see a therapist. And so finally I found the right practitioner that helped me. I really feel like he saved my life because I was at such a low point and I felt like I either need to get better or I need to transition off this planet. And I don't care how it goes, but it needs to go one way because I cannot do this for one more second. And so I'm forever so eternally grateful. And once you go through something like that, it's like you can't unsee it, right? And so I at this time I had more interest in nutrition. I had some certifications in nutrition, so I went back to school. I got my master's in human nutrition and functional medicine, and I was starting to work with people. I was starting to have babies, so then I really fell in love with working with moms and just the lack of standard of care with 4 moms and in that period of life. And then I'm just a lifelong learner, so I went back, I got my doctorate degree, and as you know, at this point, I've been in practice for several years, and I was like, "Something's missing. Something is missing." And in fact, I was just talking to my health coach, like, last month, and we were realizing over 90% of our clients have seen other functional medicine practitioners before. And I was like, God, as an industry, that kinda sucks. Like, what is missing? Why as an industry, why are we missing the mark so often? Like, why aren't we nailing it the first time? I don't understand, and from my perspective, I think it's because so many really well-meaning functional medicine practitioners are missing the tools and the modalities to address the emotional component, which we can get into in our conversation today. But so then I started diving into that and incorporating all of those tools into my practice, and here we are now.
Yeah, I think that's such an important distinction. I mean, as somebody, I you and I are so alike. I'm like, which masters?
I know.
Someone asked me what credentials do you have? I was like, you want my bachelor's, my 2 masters, or my PhD? Like, I've been in school too long.
Yeah.
That is not a prop me up. It's just I'm a lifelong learner, and I just love student loans. Um,
Just put it on
it's
my
true. It's
tab. Just
just put it on my tab. I'm paying it out by 85. That's all I'm saying. But the reality is there is missing components, right?
Yeah.
And as somebody that's super fascinated by biochemistry, the electronics of the body, all those things that we can kind of either test for, look at, and other things, we if you so here's the way I think about it. If we can observe our body, so if you could sit on a park bench and observe your thoughts, everybody that's ever sat through a 10 seconds of meditation, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Observe your thoughts. You are not your thoughts, and therefore you are not your body,
Yeah.
because you couldn't be able to observe it if you were,
Yeah.
right? So there is another piece and part of us, whatever you want to call that. And our emotions are a part of that. And there's all this other stuff. But I think so much of it is we get really enamored with all of the technical, and our patients do too. I mean, a lot of people come to us and they're like, I just don't have the right test yet. And it's like, well, maybe it's not the test that we need,
Yeah. Right.
you know? And so let's dig in a little bit, because there's this kind of underlying sort of hidden physical and emotional things that lead to things like chronic fatigue, chronic
Mhm.
pain, exhaustion, burnout.
Yeah. You know, I mean, just to give like a little bit of an understanding of like the subconscious and the conscious mind here. So, the subconscious mind is the 95% that's actually running the show. So, this is our attitudes and our beliefs and our past experiences and our reactions to things and all of the programming that we've picked up throughout our life. I mean, how many of us have picked up like limiting beliefs even around money throughout our life? Like, anybody grow up in a household where it was like money's the root of all evil, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Like, right? That's all programming that was installed in us at a young age that can impact our response and our relationship to money later in life. The same thing can happen with our health. How many people have you heard that are like, oh, everyone in my family has bad teeth, or all the women in my family get thyroid issues? It's like they're already presupposing that that is going to happen to them as well. And yes, genetics are a thing and for sure are a component here. But when you accept these limiting beliefs into your life, that is the programming, that's the subconscious mind. Also, the negative emotions that may be attached to past negative experiences that haven't been fully resolved and dealt with. All of these things are the subconscious mind, which is the 95% that's actually running the show. Then we have the conscious mind, which is the 5%. This is our this is our logic and our reasoning and our creativity. So the conscious mind is the goal setter. We can consciously say, I want to balance my hormones. I want to not be in pain. I want to make more money. I want to attract somebody, a better partner into my life, or whatever it is. We can consciously set those goals. But the subconscious mind is the goal getter. And it's going to go after whatever programming that it's running in the background. You can think of it kind of like a software program. And so, what happens in the realm of health is that people can have unresolved emotions that are oftentimes connected to negative past events, whether that's sometimes people refer to it as like capital T trauma, or whether it's small little emotional concussions that have happened throughout your lifetime, whether it's just a really stressful job, a toxic relationship, a negative experience that you had at a store, like whatever it is. Um, when we have those negative events, those significant emotional events that happened with negative emotions attached to them that do not get resolved, the body loves to send you a message, and it likes to send messages in the form of physical symptoms. And so the biggest emotions that I see that are holding people back in the physical world, in the physical plane, are anger, sadness, fear, hurt, shame, and guilt. Um, Sometimes grief is in there as well as kind of the seventh one. And so when we can go in and clear out these negative emotions or these limiting beliefs that are holding us back, this can look like the self-sabotage. This can look like some people are have this really strong protective part of them that's highly controlling. So it's like, what is that? Where did that come from? For what purpose do you not feel safe in your body? And when we address that and clear all of those things out, everything that you do on the physical plane, right? The testing, the supplements, the lifestyle recommendations, the nutrition, all of those things, in my experience and from my perspective, work better and faster. And the people who stay looping, who feel like they've done all the things, I've tried everything, who are practitioner jumping, I've worked with everybody, I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into my health. I think this is the missing piece. It's like running against the wind with a parachute on your back, and until you clear that out, as soon as you do, it's like reaching down and unclicking the parachute, and then you're off.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Because the reality is most of the time we are completely unaware of what that is to begin with. It's a pattern that we have that we're like completely blind to our subconscious activities, right? And whether, yeah, not conscious at all, and that blindness definitely leads to that. But I think there's also a protective mechanism that drives us to look outside of ourselves, to look for other parts, right? Like it's gotta be something else, it's gotta be somewhere else. So how do you walk somebody through that? Because as a mom, let's face it, whether you're a mom of a 2-year-old, a mom of a 30-year-old that may or may not be living on your couch, you know, like, let's face it, we have some boomerang children often and all those other things. The momness never goes away. The caring for other never goes away. The sense of emotion and requirement of taking care of others never goes away, right? And most women that come to our time period, or not ours, you're younger than I am, but my time period, is we're finally here and we're like, oh my God, thank God that, hopefully most of them have made it, right? I have a moment, and we don't even know how to take the moment because we don't know how to let go of the responsibility, or at least put it in the appropriate measure. So how do you help people start to unpack this? Like,
So, the very first thing that I do is I get very curious about their language, the power of the spoken word, the power of our language. People really underestimate how this can correlate with literal physical symptoms and dis-ease in the body, or feeling this like we're constantly just go, 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 or we're overworked and we're burnt out, or we're not filling up our own cups and we're giving to everybody else. There's lots to unpack there. I get very curious, but the first thing I do is we talk about language. And so what this looks like, how I start people with this, when somebody comes to me and I say, "Okay, tell me what your goals are. What would you love? What do you want to get out of this experience together?" Oftentimes they will say things like, "I don't want to be in pain anymore. I don't want to be bloated, or I don't want to be so tired all the time," or whatever it is. But if you listen to that language, there's something called away from versus toward language. So that is all
Mhm.
away from language. There's a pain point, something they don't like. And this can happen in other areas of our life too. I don't want to be in debt anymore. I don't want to keep attracting losers into my life, whatever it is. They're trying to get away from that pain point that is away from language. The thing about the subconscious mind is that it doesn't register things in the negative. So if I ask you to not think of a purple elephant, you're immediately thinking of a purple elephant. And so the same type of thing can happen with our language. If we're constantly in that away from language, with that using these away from motivation strategies, what happens is we can keep looping and people can continue to anchor in the things that they don't want. And so when they say that to me, I say, "Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And what would you like instead?" Because what I'm wanting to do is switch them from that away from language into toward language. Where are we heading? Where are we heading? What do you want instead? Some people, when I ask them this, they start crying because nobody has ever held that space for them. Nobody has ever allowed them to dream or to have permission to state what they would actually love. What do you want instead? And some people, this is actually very hard for them, is because the away from motivation strategies are so ingrained in their mind. They'll say, I don't want to be in pain anymore. Amazing. What do you want instead? I want to wake up and not be in pain. Like they don't mean to, but they keep it's so ingrained. They're not conscious of it. They're not doing it on purpose, but it's so ingrained. And so, first of all, switching from that away from language into where are we going instead? You can think of this as like a carrot and a stick. Are you constantly trying to get away from the stick? Or can we think about getting more closer to the carrot? And so, and people, this is such an aha first step for people because they are blown away when they start getting aware of their language at how often this happens. Even little things throughout the day, like, hey Betty, how you doing today? And then people say, oh, I'm hanging in there. Oh, I'm doing okay. Or listen to that language. Well, we continue to use that language, we're going to continue to hang in there and be okay. Is that what you want? If that's what you want, then great. But if you want something more, if you want to have more bandwidth, more energy, more productivity, whatever it is, then let's get curious about our language. Or same thing like, oh, this work project is killing me. Listen to the language. Is it actually killing you? How can we reframe that? What do you want instead of this work project killing you? What is the outcome? Where are we heading? What's the carrot? And so this is a whole process that I walk people through. And just as like a takeaway for the listeners to get started in this, a little bit of tasking here, if you're open to it, is anytime you notice yourself saying something in the negative, in this away from language, ask yourself, what do I want instead? So you write down what you noticed you said. So, like, I don't want to be in pain anymore. Ask yourself, what do I want instead? I want to be able to touch my toes again, or whatever it is. What do you want to do? What would you love? And write that down twice. Once to kind of cancel out the negative, and once to now re anchor in where we're heading instead. And that's always the first step, is to think about language.
Oh, yeah. Now, it's interesting because I think, I was having this conversation earlier. I'm the menopause expert for Noom Vibe, and we were having a conversation with their large community and talking about kind of, body positivity and how we view our body and other things. And I think, one of the other major things is we often also think nobody is going through what we're going through. Like, nobody has an emotional tie to food. Nobody has experienced what I'm feeling. And I think it's somewhat of a protective mechanisms and all the things that we've learned through our traumas and other things. But I think there's also this feeling of isolation, or I have to do it alone. And it's driven from urgency and perfectionism and all these other things. Like I have to do it by myself and I can't ask for help. Or if I ask for help, I'm weak, or, nobody else does this and I'm different. So I don't want to tell anybody. And I'm like, oh, it's universal. We all have it. We all have it.
Yeah. I think when that happens, I feel like as practitioners, like language is the greatest tool that we have in our toolbox. So if somebody was telling me that, I would dig in. What causes you to believe that you have to do it all yourself? What causes you to believe that that nobody else could understand what you're experiencing this? When did you decide that? Was it before, during, or after your birth? For what purpose do you feel like this is the best path forward? And I keep digging in, I keep asking questions, and inevitably something will pop. A past emotional event or a past experience will come out. And so often, this is part of my story too. When I was young, I was sexually abused by my grandfather, and the people in my nobody was protecting me. People knew it was happening. Nobody was speaking up, and nobody was protecting me. And so what came out of that is I had this very strong protective part that was born. And so growing up, I had these ways that I was behaving that I thought were just kind of personality traits. So things like being hyper controlling. I did not do good in group work. Just let me do all the work so I can make sure I got it done right. I was very into math and spreadsheets. I was very rigid. I was trying to control my external environment so that I could try to create some sense of structure and safety, because that got ripped away from me. And I didn't feel safe. And the people who I thought were there to protect me were not protecting me. So I lost this huge sense of safety. And I went through decades of my life, with just kind of these personality traits. And I just kind of thought it was who I was, until I started diving deeper into this work and understanding that this is these parts of me that are trying to protect me. And so true for all of us, this part that feels like we have to do it all ourselves. We can't ask for help, or that means we're weak, or whatever it is. These are parts of us that are trying to protect you. They're there to try to give you a sense of safety. And so understanding where did that come from can provide people so much clarity, because when I figured that out, it was, oh, I got it. So this is why, like, when I first get into a relationship, it's I could be physical and intimate with that person. As I start getting more emotionally connected to that person, I push them away. Oh, this is why in my friendships, I tended, before I dealt with this and cleared this out, I tended to be the type of person to just have a couple of friends, right? Like, not a huge group of friends, because I didn't know if I would be safe in a huge group of people. Oh, this is why I make these types of decisions in my business. It's just like everything made so much sense and everything snapped together, and there was so much clarity. And so being instead of looking outside of us and trying to control all the things to make our environment as such so that it makes us feel better, from my perspective, it really must go the other way around, and turning inward and doing that deeper work, clearing out what that programming in our subconscious that is no longer serving us, that is contributing to dis-ease in the body, physical manifestations and symptoms, that's contributing to behaviors that are keeping us away from the results that we actually would love. Once we do that, then it's like now we're attracting what we actually want instead of trying to force it and override the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so, so very powerful. And obviously, you've got a bunch of different tools that you use, like you were saying, journaling and other things. And hypnosis is one of those as well, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand what that is, or they think it's like a stage trick where they make you dance like a chicken. I'm like, no, 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 no. I've done past life regression and hypnosis, and I'm like, it is not that. Right? So let's talk about how that helps you kind of open up the doors and help insert new kind of I think of it as like inserting new opportunity into your subconscious so it's not stuck in the pattern anymore.
100%. So let's kind of unpack what hypnosis is. So first of all hypnosis is self hypnosis. and so a lot of people get scared of hypnosis because they think somebody else is going to be controlling them. They're going to be doing things that against their will, or they're going to lose their free will or whatever it is. And so all hypnosis is self hypnosis. And we've all been in a state of hypnosis because hypnosis is really just a state of trance. Have you ever been like driving and you just kind of zone out, and then you're pulling into your driveway and you're like, oh, I kind of zoned out for a minute? Or if you've been in deep meditation, this is all just a state of trance, and that's hypnosis. You're hypnotizing yourself. That's all that it is. And so I think that that's important, first of all, for people to understand. And it is not what you see at like the county fair. That is a party
Mhm.
trick. And that you can do that. I mean, I can do like full body cataleptic hypnosis, which is a fun party trick, when somebody's super stiff and can lay between two chairs. And you can do that. But when we're talking about health and using hypnosis as a tool, you're exactly right. Being able to get into that state of trance, this more hypnotic state, whatever you want to call it, is what allows your subconscious mind to be open to new possibilities, to rewire these neurological connections that are no longer serving us. And to be able to, the other thing that it does is it allows the mind to quiet, because if we have a lot of competing parts of us, so like I said, some people have this really strong protector part, some people have a self-saboteur part, some people have these different parts of us that come out, and it allows us to just quiet the mind, and not and be in a safe space of trusting and inner knowing, so that we don't feel like there's no reason that we feel like these self-sabotage parts or these protective parts or these controlling parts need to come out and do a job in this moment. And when we use hypnosis, I use past life regression as well. The whole point of that process is to be able to reach down, like I said, and unclick that parachute so that you're clearing out that baggage. It's no longer holding you back. And while you're in this state, we can also, as you mentioned, install what do you want to believe instead. Like if you have a limiting belief that you're broken, I mean, how many times do we hear this in health? I'm broken. My body will never get back to how it was before I had kids, or before whatever, or when I was this old, or it's just part of aging, or I just have to accept this, or whatever it is that actually your belief? Like, do you want to believe that? What do you want to believe instead? And let's do that. I mean, you have the power to do that instead. And so when we're using hypnosis, past life regression is kind of part of that as well. We're able to install and make new neurological connections to what we would love instead.
Ladies, if you're noticing more fine lines and wrinkles, it's not just about aging, it's about the loss of estrogen. And that affects our skin structure, making it drier, thinner, less firm. But here's the great news: I've created Bias Mastery Cream to help. This luxurious bioidentical estrogen cream supports your natural hydration and elasticity. It's packed with nourishing oils like olive, jojoba, aloe, and coconut, so it feels amazing and helps soften those lines and bring back that healthy glow. I've been using it, and let me tell you, my skin has never looked or felt better. It's smoother, more radiant, and those little cracks and creases are way less noticeable. If you're ready to give your skin some extra love, check out Buy Est Mastery on the Metabolic Blueprint website. And that's metabolicblueprint.com/. By Est Mastery. That's BIEST Mastery, MASTERY. And your face will thank you. Yeah, and I think, hearing that process, obviously a lot can be done even just in one, like, boom, one session. Like it's kind of like a door opening, but I also think it's kind of like a hallway, and you're headed all the way to the end of the hallway. And so it's also something that's iterative, like as we work on things, because it's like peeling back a layer of an onion. You keep peeling back and you keep uncovering, more opportunity to get better, to have a different experience, have a different future. And so I think, I think you're right that that's a big part of healing that gets missed because we keep thinking it's a test or a this or a new elimination diet, or I need to take that new supplement. I mean, if I got paid for every time somebody asked me about a supplement, I could fund a lot of stuff. Right, because I was like, "Well, what do you think about that?" I'm like, "Well, there's 1,000 things that you can take, but is it instrumentally good for you? Hard to say." You know? There's always something because 'cause we're looking for the magic pill, right? We're looking for the magic pill for sure. Now tell me, so obviously you bring, language and how we use language and hypnosis together along with the clinical side. So how do you marry all those pieces together?
There's a process. There's a step-by-step process, and I find that I start with the emotional piece. I start and also nervous system is involved in this as well, right? Like if you had an experience like I did when you were little and you don't feel safe. I remember one time I was in this experiential breathwork session and the prompt was to go back to a time in your life where you felt completely safe. This was before I had done all of the work to clear all of this out, and I didn't have one. I couldn't do that. I didn't have one. So if you don't feel safe, it doesn't matter how many tests you take or how many supplements you take or how many diets you go on or how hard you go at the gym. The mitochondria in your cells are going to be stuck in the cell danger response. They're not going to close that loop and come back to a state of health and homeostasis if on some level they feel like there's still a bear and chasing you. And so we start there, making sure that the body feels safe, making sure that it's like, whew, Betty's good, Betty's safe. Now we can heal. And if you try to override that process, this is why I feel like 90% of my clients have seen other practitioners before and why people loop and don't get the long lasting results that they want. So we start there. So we're clearing out negative emotions that anger, sadness, fear, hurt, shame, and guilt, possibly grief that needs to be cleared out, any negative limiting beliefs that are not serving you. Integrate if you have a lot of parts that are kind of conflicting, integrating those parts into the whole so that you can feel whole and not fragmented as a person. We do all of that and then supporting the nervous system, sending messages of safety to the subconscious mind. Um, all of that happens first. And then now I feel like we have a starting place. Right now we're starting clean. Sometimes that's enough. And people don't need anything additional like on the physical plane. Sometimes they do. So then from there, then we do whatever tests, or then we add additional support in supplementation, or then we support detoxification or gut health, or whatever it is that they need on the physical plane. And when we do it in that order, all of those physical plane recommendations, they all work better, faster, and more efficiently when you have that emotional baggage cleared out.
Oh my gosh, so true. So, so true. Now, I'm curious because I would think that a lot of times, you brought up earlier when you were talking about your own experience that at first you thought it was personality,
Mhm.
right? This is my personality.
Mhm.
Like, I have a hypervigilant personality.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows me, I'm like, "Ooh, injustice being done? Hold on, let me put on my suit." You know? I mean, it's a little out of control. Like, I didn't think it was out of control, and I had 2 girlfriends that I've known since elementary school, and both of them reminded me that we became friends because I stopped a bully from beating them up.
Aha.
And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't remember that." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, cape action was early in my life." But, I think so what I'm getting to is, I would think somebody, even somebody like myself, there's a part that they might even be nervous about, like, "Well, what if I went into all that? I kinda like my superhero alter ego or whatever." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you run into that where it's like, "Wait a minute, but this is how I've identified myself for a really long time. So if I get rid of that identity because it no longer serves me, let's make that clear. It's not serving you,
Yeah.
it's causing pain, but it is how you know yourself."
Mm.
Do you run into that a lot?
When people start doing this work, there's just kind of an evolution that happens where maybe in the beginning, so this is always so fascinating. In the beginning, people can have resistance come up because all their stuff is coming to the surface, right? And if they've got this strong protector part that's like, wait a minute, are you going to get rid of me? I belong here. I've been protecting you your whole life. Like, aren't you grateful for me? Right? Like, you could hear this internal dialogue of these, different parts of us that we have. And this does happen. Like, there are parts of people that can kind of freak out sometimes. And so, what I find to be, I was talking about earlier about kind of like parts integration is what we call this. And just like, and sometimes, and this is getting kind of deep into a rabbit hole, but I'll just give a brief summary. Sometimes, so if you have a part of you that's like that, that's like, I really like this part of me. Like, you can't get rid of me. I'm here. I serve a purpose. What are you talking about? Sometimes we can give that part a different job. So when we clear out the
Yeah.
emotional baggage, and when we can provide that part with some additional education, and we can give that part a new job, that part becomes happy and satisfied, and is down to get integrated into the whole. And the problem, or the potential problem, that part was trying to imagine could happen in their head, dissolves.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Because 'cause I'm sure somebody was thinking that, because that's what came up for me. I'm like, there's parts of that I'm sure came from, either big T or little t that could serve fairly well. It probably, like you said, just needs a different job.
Yeah, and there's always a time and place, right? Like, if there was
Mhm.
actual danger, we want that
Mhm.
part to come front and center, right? Like, that's a
Right.
strong protective part. Like, come on, girlfriend, like, let's go. If there's not actual danger, but there's perceived danger, so like, let's say you're stepping into a situation that's uncomfortable, or that's brand new, or doesn't have a guaranteed outcome. Sometimes this is even just like working with a functional medicine practitioner. I don't know, this is a larger investment, this feels scary, there's no guarantee, I don't know about this, right? There's not actual danger there. And so in that situation, being able to have a different response, giving that part a different job to do, makes a lot more sense. And so time and place, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. For sure. So for my listeners, I know that you have created something for them to be able to maybe explore a little bit of this, because I think, how many women have, musculoskeletal pain, fatigue, low energy, frustration, can't, all of those things, being able to maybe get to the root emotional and sort of hidden parts, I think is so important. So talk about what that is for my listeners.
So what I find a lot is that there's kind of top 7 symptoms that I think a lot of people that I work with have. One of those is pain. And when we have chronic pain, that is that is not directly related to like a physical injury, or it's past the time, or perhaps 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or something past the point of this acute phase where this injury happened. When somebody has really chronic pain, whether that's like, oh yeah, like my right shoulder's always tight, or my joints always hurt, or sometimes pain moves around, my back always hurts, whatever it is, a lot of people have this chronic pain that they're feeling. And a lot of times they haven't explored, could there be an emotional component to this? And so often there is, because the body is trying to send you a message. All good bubbles float to the surface, right? This is a bubble floating up. Your subconscious mind is like, hey, we have this that's not resolved. What do you think about resolving this? Like, and if we don't listen to the message can get louder, right? The pain can get worse, or more symptoms can come. And for some people, they might feel like there's no way. Pain is like physical through and through. There's no way that there can be an emotional component. And I love working with these people, because I have a process that I walk people through. It's just a one session process where we're diving into this pain, and we can, by addressing the emotional component behind the pain, almost always the pain will reduce or go away or completely. And it's been so amazing to see. And I do not identify with the word healer. I don't like that at all. I don't do any healing to anybody. People heal themselves. And so to provide a platform and in a container for people to be in where they are safe and where they can have control over their body is absolutely amazing. So there was one client that had severe neck pain, and it was always there, and like even to look to the side you could see like she was trying to like barely open her eyes and like barely wince and move her neck over. It was super bad pain. And she had a lot of anger that was from doctors who had made poor decisions when it came to her children. And she had all of this anger that was unprocessed. And so when we were able to dive into that and release that and clear that out, her pain, which started at an 8, went to a 0. I wish I like had a recording because she was all of a sudden she was just like, "Oh my god." And she was just like moving her body so well, and then the next day she like jumped off this 20-foot cliff into a lake, like just having fun doing something that she hadn't been able to do in years. It was so incredible. And still to this day, the pain still hasn't come back. And this was decades of pain that she was hanging on to. So for anybody listening, I'm offering you that session. It's a one-time session. If your pain does not reduce or go away, I will give you your money back. And so there's nothing to lose. And I want people to be able to experience. It's not just about the pain. I want people to be able to experience the power that they have already inside of them, because I feel like people are looking so desperately for answers outside of them, and this is a process that allows you to understand that the power is already within you. We just need to give the body the right tools and environment and clear out what's no longer serving us, and it's amazing.
Oh, which is such an awesome gift. So everybody, don't worry, we'll have it in our show notes, so you can go to the show notes and click on it and take Dr. Brandy up on that. So because that's huge. Again, if it's even if it's not really like hardcore pain, we all have some pain,
Yeah.
right? We all have either physical, emotional, something,
Yeah.
right? And we could all let it be free. We could be free of it.
Right. Yeah. And if
Yeah,
that's a
we could totally
possibility
be.
that you felt like was not possible for you, just notice what you notice about your language. How are you talking to yourself throughout the day? What are you saying to your body that that's not possible? This is just something you have to live with. And be open to the beautiful world of infinite possibilities. And this reminds me of a story I'll just share briefly. Maybe you know of it, Betty, but the story of Nims Persia, who was this Nepalese mountain climber. And he decided that he was going to climb all 14 peaks that were over 8,000 kilometers, which is like in the death zone, in 7 months. And before he decided to do that, the average was like one of these peaks in 1 year. But he was going to do all 14 in 7 months. And everybody told him he was crazy. Everybody said that this was impossible and there was no way you're going to be able to do this. And so he named this quest Project Possible. And he went on this quest and he started summiting these mountains. And he was on social media raising money, getting people's support. People were still telling him like how crazy he was. And he took a picture of himself like at the top of Everest with all of these thousands of other climbers behind him, and he's at the top. He took this picture, he posted it online, and that gave him a lot of virality. He gained a lot of supporters from that. He's on track. He gets to his last peak, and the Chinese government pulls his permit. The mountain was in China, and the Chinese government pulls his permit and says, you can't do this because this is impossible. Nobody has done this. This is
It's already
impossible. So
done.
we're going to pull your permit because you'll die. And so he tried, negotiating with the government, and it was a no-go. And so then he turned to social media and he turned to the people. He's like, I need your help. Like, we're so close to this. He didn't give up. He held the vision of exactly what was possible. And he ended up getting, I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands of people reaching out to the Chinese government. They ended up giving him his permit back, and he was on such a time crunch. He was literally running down one mountain so that he could get over to the next, so that he could summit it, get his permit, and then summit the next mountain, the last mountain in time. And he did that. He completed his quest in 6 months and 6 days. And something that every single person almost on the planet told him was impossible. But when you hold that vision of infinite possibility and you align your language and your behaviors and you clear out what's holding you back, you get the parachute off your back. A whole new limitless world of opportunities opens up to you.
Wow, what a beautiful story. I didn't know his story. That's
Yeah, Nims
amazing.
Persia. And so
That's
now, like,
amazing.
you can hire his company. It's like $250,000 if you want to climb one of these mountains. So he runs this really successful business, like helping people achieve their dream of summiting these mountains and stay alive while doing it, which is complex. And he came from nothing. And even during this time, there was a lot of drama happening with his family. I think it was his father who was in poor health. He actually flew to him on a helicopter, so he got to see his father, and then his father died shortly after that. Like, there was every reason in the book to give up, but he didn't. And I love that story so much because it's such a good reminder, thinking about your health, if what's going on feels like having to climb 8,000-kilometer mountains in a time period of 7 months, just remember that story of Project Possible.
That's really cool. What a great story. And so great to kind of end on. So everybody, Dr. Brandy, we will have her link in our show notes so you can take her up on that opportunity to get pain free or pain better. And then how can people find you online? Tell them how
ResilientMotherhood.health is my website and also my Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So resilientmotherhood.com.
.health.
This is Dr. Brandy Cummings. I'm sorry. Resilient, say it again.
ResilientMotherhood.health.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
.health.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Brandy. We're going to see each other next week.
Yes, I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for having me. Always so good to talk to you.
Yes. And for everybody listening to Menopause Mastery, thank you so much for joining us. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment below. And if you're listening to this on any of your favorite podcast platforms, please give us a review. That helps us reach more women and change women's lives. Thank you so much, and I'll be back with you next week.